Yes, okay. I was a little bit cut off there, but I wanted to say use white pepper with your mince. Not a lot if you don't like burning food, and for children as well, you can just put a little bit of this in. It brings out the mince, the meaty taste of the food and your Marmite. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm first going to brown my mince just to seal it up with a little bit of oil. And then I will brine. Okay, so let me get back to my point. Okay, so I'm going to take a different route now to explain to you how the prophecies came about the Redeemer. Because the Redeemer is not really revealed as such, as you would say, there's a person that redeems them, like Moses redeemed Israel from Egypt, okay? But by the power of God. God did it. Moses was the vessel of doing it. So, in a way, there will be a vessel that's going to do the redemption. Okay, so I'm going to take a different route now. But you'll understand why I'm taking this route. It will give you the knowledge of where this is going, because this is important. This is absolutely important. God said in 1 Chronicles 17, his son will build him a house, and his son will receive a kingdom, and God will settle him in his house, in his kingdom. Okay. So this means that God, that is spirit that's in heaven, said that he will settle his son in his house in heaven. And his kingdom will be forever. Okay. Hold that thought. Because what is important in this instance is to know that there's a forever kingdom that is going to be brought about by God for his son. So we're not going to debate who the son is. We will get to that point, because if we say it was Solomon, the follow-up of David's seed, then it wouldn't make sense, because now it's also said that Solomon was building the house, but he wasn't settled in God's kingdom forever, because that was broken down. Everything was broken down after David. Okay, so the son that was spoken of was something else. Definitely not Solomon. So who was that seed? Right, so if we take, for example, Isaiah 9 verse 6. It said that this specific king or missionary of God, or prophet, whatever you call it, will do judgment. And he will prosper and everything. Now, a lot of people say this is Hezekiah that's been spoken of. But unfortunately, if we go to Isaiah 2, he speaks about the same thing. But now this judgment becomes forever. Exactly the same thing. So what is being told about in Isaiah 9, verse 6 and 7 cannot be Hezekiah. It is a type of person that's going to do judgment forever for God. God's going to appoint this person to do the judgment and all the things that needs to be done. So obviously, Isaiah 2 debunks Isaiah 9 verse 6 and 7. So we still have a mystery that needs to be solved. And I don't know why I put this off. The stove, it's a gas stove. Sometimes maybe I've got it too small because I don't like it too hot. Otherwise it's burning my food. So I'm just making the mince. So I just got the mince inside this. And I'm going to brown my mince now. Just seal it up. And then I'll put the Marmite in. And the white pepper. And then after that I'll use a little bit of dark pepper. Black pepper. And maybe a little bit of salt if it needs a little bit more. But I don't want to make it too salty. Yes, the other day I made it too salty. So my landlord, I said to him, well, do you want to taste my food? And I knew it was too salty. And he tasted my food. I gave him a bucket full. He came back. It seems like he only took one bite. He says to me now, the food is nice, but it's too salty for me. And I wanted to impress him, but it was too salty. But anyway, I was hoping he liked it, but he didn't, obviously. I'm sure he thinks now I can't make food, Just excuse my English as well. My English is not too well. I am in South Africa. And the way I look, it's cold, it's winter, it's in Joburg. So just excuse my attire, as the English people say. Good English language, I hope. All right, so then we go back. So God says, also in 2 Samuel 7, I think it's 2 Samuel 7, now it comes back to me. It's coming back to me now. But anyway, God says in 2 Samuel 7, I think it's 2 Samuel 7, that he will set up the kingdom of his son and his son's throne. So not only is there a son that's going to build a house for God, he's also going to set up a kingdom for the son and a throne for the son that will last forever. And remember now, if we go back to the other verse, sometimes I'll forget the verses as I'm going along. God said, I will settle him in my house, in my kingdom. It will be forever. So now we're going to jump back to, I'm not sure how many of you people read Daniel, but I read Daniel because Daniel is a perfect prophecy that shows perfect timing, but I will get that into another video. But in Daniel 2, God said about the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, about this figure, and he said, God will set up a kingdom. God will set up a kingdom. Now listen carefully. He did not say he will transfer the kingdom of Israel. He said he will set up a kingdom within the times of this fourth kingdom. And this set up kingdom will eventually overpower overpower this kingdom. Basically, in a nutshell, will overtake this kingdom. This fourth kingdom. Now remember, this prophecy has been done about 500 years before the Roman Empire came. And we all know with deep studies who these kingdoms were. The two arms, the head, the legs, and everything. So within this fourth kingdom, time of the fourth kingdom, God is going to set up a kingdom. If God wanted Israel's kingdom to prosper, He would have said the kingdom of Israel will be revitalized. The house of Israel will be revitalized. But the difference is that God said His Son will build me a house. And I will give him a kingdom and a throne that will last forever. And I will settle him in my house. Then the last one, God will set up a kingdom within the times of the fourth kingdom. Now you need to follow me because we're going to get to redeeming part. Because this is absolutely important of who the Redeemer is. Some of you might know already. Only by speaking about the Old Testament. Because I'm going to stay into the Old Testament. Because I want to share this with my Jewish friends. My Jewish neighbors. That has become Messianic Jews or even the normal Jews. Because they need to hear this. This is important. Now if you go to Daniel 7, I'm going to jump around a little bit. Okay? Now Daniel is not written in chronological order. So which means that Daniel 9, for example, supersedes the timing of Daniel 8, 11, and 12. Because Daniel 9 has got the count of 457 BC. We all know that. The studies has been done. So the announcement has been done from verse 25, Daniel 9, verse 25. I'm just quickly going to say this. And it's 457, and then you've got weeks, and 1 day equals 7 years, whatever the case might be. So we've got 483 years, and we've got 70 weeks. So we all know that the whole count is 490 years. Okay. So from 457, you count 490 years. So that's why I just used this as an example that Daniel was not written in chronological order. And that is important. It even superseded 8, 11, and 12. Because 8, 11, and 12 goes together. Now this is where the important part comes in. Daniel 8, it speaks about a king that defiles the sanctuary. And we all know that was King Antiochus the 5th, I think, the 5th or 6th, from the Seleucid kingdom, or whatever you call it. And in 167 BC, he offered a pig in the temple. So then he placed the abominations onto the temple. That has been done. He also took away the daily sacrifices. So this is the time of the Maccabean war and the Maccabean revolt. And there was a war between the Jewish and that kingdom. A lot of Jewish people were killed, a lot of them. So if you go and read about the Maccabees a little bit, you'll understand that war and how this guy fits in. Now it gives us a timing. Because remember, Daniel 12 had also a timing. And it fits perfectly into Daniel 8 and 11 and 12. Everyone fits in together. And at Daniel 12 we see that many saints that sleep in the dust will awake. Some to everlasting life and some to everlasting shame. So there's a judgment call by God. But the most important one is that supersedes that one is Daniel 9, verse 26 and 27. Because Daniel 9 proclaimed that the temple will be destroyed by the prince of the people. That, and then Daniel 9 verse 27 said, and on the wing of abominations, desolations are determined. Now, I'm just jumping a little bit so you can understand what's going on here. First now, we've got a judgment of Israel in Daniel 12. And I'll show you how this comes together. Because this judgment call on Israel in Daniel 12 is the redemption part. Because he says, many will awake from the dust, Sheol, dead. Some to everlasting life, some to everlasting shame. This is where we get the resurrection from. Now remember, I spoke to you earlier about God approaching Moses, saying to Moses, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am the God of the living and not the dead. So Daniel 8 said, this thing of this king, he now defiles the sanctuary. Now it's important. He defiles the sanctuary, but the sanctuary is not destroyed yet. And this is important to have the timeline. He says after 2,300 days, the sanctuary will be cleansed. Now this goes before the temple got destroyed. This timing is before the temple got destroyed because that time is the time when the sanctuary got destroyed as well in 70 AD. So now Daniel 8 says 2,300 days. But if you read further down, it gives you the timeline. It says the timeline of this is going to be evenings and mornings. Evenings and mornings. So God actually gives in our times 12 hours. So if we have to calculate evenings and mornings only, for example, we get 3.5 years. It is a prophecy that was hidden because God will never come and tell you straightforward. He will always come with a hidden thing for you to understand this, for you to make out what God is trying to say. And the reason why I say it's 3.5 years is because of the evenings and mornings. Okay. Because God's count was always from evening to morning. Like in Genesis, it was evening and it was morning the first day. Okay, so then we go to Daniel 12. I'm going to jump a little bit to Daniel 12. It says, and it starts with, now this is important, and at that time. What time? If it starts with and at that time. So Daniel 12, remember now the Bible never had verses like we do today. It was all written in one word. So Daniel 11 ended with the death of the king. And we all know it was still Antiochus that took away the daily sacrifices. Now Daniel 12 continues and says, and at that time, which time? What's last been said in Daniel 11? What was last said in Daniel 11? The last verse. And the king died. When did Antiochus die? Antiochus died at 164 BC. Exactly 3.5 years since 167 BC, when he defiled the sanctuary. And at that time, many of thy people, Michael will stand up for thy people. Thy people meant Israel, not nations, not all nations, Israel, because Daniel was part of thy people. And at that time, the death of the king. Now, this is the first proof. The second proof is Daniel 12 verse 11. He says, from the time the daily sacrifices, now listen carefully, from the time the daily sacrifices is taken away and the abomination is set up, the set up of it, which means we go back to Daniel 8. The setup happens there. The defilement of the sanctuary. From then, from that day, 167 BC, there will be 1,200 and whatever days, which of course equals to 3.5 years approximately. It is in line with Daniel 8. The sanctuary is cleansed. God has allowed the cleansing of the sanctuary. And also now, at that time, many of the saints who are killed will wake to everlasting life and others to everlasting shame. So now, this is a judgment call. Where did the other saints go that did not make it onto the book of life that God had opened for them? They obviously went to Sheol, the grave. They went where the dead is. The dead knows nothing. And the others went to God, where Abraham and Isaac and Jacob are. They became children of God because they were found to be righteous. Who was judged? Those who slept in the dust. Those who died according to those 3 years. Those who died before it. So in those 3 years, those who died, even those who died before it, they got judged and sent. So that was the one judgment call of God, being Israel as in total. Because remember now, the sanctuary is cleansed. Everything is going as normal. God do the judgment of the dead. And now all of a sudden, everything goes on normal. But, again, God makes another call to Israel. Now we're going to go back to Daniel 9. That supersedes that time. Because Daniel said, God, please, you know what, my people, you must really, I've read Jeremiah and everything, please, just have mercy on them. What can I do? What's going to happen, God? So God said to Daniel, I give the Israel 70 weeks to get away from sin, to cleanse themselves, to be better, to be righteous. I give them 70 weeks. And this is the layout. And God even said, after the 70 weeks. Within the 70 weeks, that is cut off. It's cut off for Israel. It's done. I've done my part. Because now Daniel 12 is already fulfilled. The first Israel has been judged to everlasting shame, the others to everlasting punishment, life, whatever, with God in heaven. Now God says, we give them 70 weeks. The temple will be destroyed after so many weeks or whatever. Temple will be destroyed. And then after that, on the wing of abominations. The abominations has been done already in 167 BC. And on the wing of the abomination, desolations are determined. And that determined will be poured on the desolate. Who's the desolate? Again, now this desolate is those that came after 164 BC, that's still alive in flesh. Because they still had a function to keep the laws, to do what God expects them to do, to get rid of their sins, at least, and to have mercy. The other dead's already gone. They are found in Sheol. They are there, stuck in the graves, in the place of the dead. But remember that God said in Hosea 13 verse 14, I will ransom them from Sheol, from the grave, from the power of the dead. I will ransom them. So God has done a ransom already in Daniel 12. Okay. God has done a judgment call already in Daniel 12. But there will be another. Where is the redeeming coming from? I would say the redeeming happened already in one part, and that will be Daniel 12, 164 BC. That's my theory, because it says, many of those who sleeps in the dust shall awake, which means shall be resurrected, awake. So that is the first redemption. Now the second redemption goes beyond that, which of course is then 70 AD, when the temple got destroyed. And then obviously another judgment happens. That's the last call for Israel as a whole. Now, here's a tricky one. God said He will set up a kingdom in the times of the Roman Empire. And in this kingdom, in Daniel 2, remember now we're going to jump to Daniel 7. He says, to make a long story short, there is a fourth kingdom. So this is my Marmite that I'm going to put into the mince. I showed you now. The mince is now sealed, and my Marmite is going to go in. And then I'm going to put some white pepper in it, just to bring out a nice taste of it. So, but luckily, when the Marmite gets hot, it melts quickly, so I can just stir it. But I'm using a gas stove, so it's a little bit hot. So sometimes I need to just put the stove off and on and all those things. Okay, so God said that He will set up a kingdom on this earth in the times of the Roman Empire. And this kingdom is going to be forever. It's going to take over this Roman Empire. as world rulers. It doesn't say it's going to take the Roman Empire. It just says it will consume this fourth kingdom. In Daniel 7, it now tells you that this fourth kingdom will make war against the saints. Now, if you link this to Daniel 9 verse 26, he also speaks about a war. And he will make war and destroy the temple and the city. And now he says in Daniel 7 that this fourth kingdom will make war against the saints. So we know this war started at 66 AD to 70 AD when the temple finally got destroyed. So it was a Jewish revolt against the Jewish and Christian revolt, I would say, against the Roman Empire. So there was a lot of people killed. I think there was more than, in that city alone, as far as I understand, some people reckon there was more than 1.5 million people killed within that city, which is bad. It's bad. And they were held hostage within the city without water and food for 5-6 months. And they died of hunger and thirst, and they were horribly killed. Which of course is not a nice thing. Never for any human. But then, Daniel 7 said, this kingdom will make war against the saints. He will trample the earth. He will break the earth in pieces. But then also he said, the judgment of God stands. Remember now earlier in Daniel 7, God opened the books and he judged who? He judged the small horn, the king of that kingdom. He was judged. Now that kingdom is judged by the books because the books are open. And his judgment stands because God said, and he prolonged the lives of the kings after him as well. And then this kingdom makes war against the saints. And he overcomes the saints, which is the 70 AD. When the city is destroyed, the temple is destroyed and everything. But eventually, the saints will overtake this kingdom. And the kingdom under the heavens, if you read very carefully, it says the kingdom under the heavens will be given to the saints, which means this Roman Empire as a world leader and ruler will not be ruling anymore, but the saints of God will. It doesn't mean that they rule as a kingdom, but they rule as in numbers. Those who belong to God. And this kingdom will be forever. So who did the Roman Empire make war against? He made war against the set up kingdom of God of Daniel 2. Okay guys, I'm going to pause this video quickly. God said this fourth kingdom will be destroyed totally in Daniel 7. And we know that the Roman Empire got destroyed totally when the last Roman Empire fell was in approximately 1466 AD after Christ. It came to a total fall. And this is what Daniel predicted. So the redemption plan of God, nice. The redemption plan of God went beyond 1466 AD. And there's a reason why. Because the redemption plan of God was, God said in Jeremiah 33, or I think it's Jeremiah 33, I will make a new covenant with Israel. How do you make a covenant without a new house and a new kingdom? Because a kingdom needs a covenant. It needs some rules. And God said, I will put my laws on the inward parts. I will write them in their hearts. Now remember, the first laws were written on stone by the finger of God. Now God says, I will take my laws and write it in their hearts. It's not going to be on stone anymore. So this is the first thing. The second thing God did that's going to change, God said in Ezekiel 18, the sons will no more how do you call it in English? The sons will no more be judged according to what the fathers did, and the fathers will not be judged anymore towards what the sons did. That was like a generational judgment of Israel as a whole. Now God changed this. Sorry, this is my potato. It's going to go into this now. Look at that. God changed it, and he said, there will no more be the teeth of the father is on edge now, the son's teeth is on edge. It's just meaning of the son is not going to pay for the sins of the father. It will become individual. Everybody will know him, and everybody will repent for their own sins. So God even makes another claim in Ezekiel 18. I think it's Ezekiel 18, yes.